Uh-oh, that's not good. Hello everyone, I'm That Other George. And yes, I've already made a Call to Hit episode on Joker, looking into some of the terrible reviews and responses from the media. But I saw a video by Ralph the Movie Maker, and it was interesting, and I just knew I had to stop the project I was working on to talk about this. All I do is respond to negative thoughts. But just before we get into responding to Ralph, there are a couple things I would like to elaborate on from my other Joker video. Number 1. I said at some stage in the video that calling the film a downgraded Martin Scorsese movie is a little bit weird because the film is almost as good as some of those, but I'm now seeing quite a few people going on about how Joker is a pointless film, because you can just go back and watch Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy. Now the weird thing is that despite the fact I absolutely love Joker, I do prefer both of those movies, but the argument is still stupid. The issue is that The King of Comedy or Taxi Driver being so brilliant doesn't automatically downgrade the quality of Joker. You can absolutely compare and contrast. I do that in my videos all the time, but the problem is that that doesn't work as an argument on its own. The original Star Wars trilogy being so spectacular is not what makes any other film in that franchise bad. Each film has its own set of merits or problems that you need to point out before just comparing. Number 2. The media was still wrong. A film about Disney princesses intended for children actually caused more violence. Number 3. The reviews are still terrible. It seems like people need to just invent what the film is actually about before they can just critique it, which segues us nicely into today's topic. As with everyone I seem to respond to on this channel, I'm actually a huge fan of Ralph. I mean, I'm in a bit of an awkward position now, but I think I'd even call him my favourite reviewer on YouTube, which is why I'm very disappointed by his Joker video. Ralph is so good at deconstructing movies, making great points about them and explaining his reasoning. But the Joker review just feels like a Cinema Sins video. It's really bizarre. And before any of you state that it's just his opinion, there's a difference between disliking a film and making a series of inaccurate criticisms, bad judgments, and cheap ways to try and discredit something. I get the idea of responding to another YouTuber is really frowned upon, but this shouldn't be too difficult to explain. Ralph saw Joker and thought it was a flawed movie. It's fine, it's a discussion we can have. I'm here to explain why I think his review is flawed. It's fine, it's a discussion we can have. So let's just jump into his video.
I have a very cynical opinion of Joker. It's so cynical, and you can tell I'm annoyed that I have to watch the movie.
As an intro, this is fine. I'm not bothered that he doesn't like the movie. It's just when we reach the more fundamental stuff that I start to have a problem.
That looks like CGI. Was that even necessary? Some producers are like, oh, you gotta make it more dramatic. He's gotta crack the window. It would have been better if it just didn't do that.
Firstly, the context here is cut for some reason. Arthur had just lost his job. He took a gun into a children's hospital. It was a very idiotic move on his part. His boss tells him that he's fired, and within the heat of the moment, he bangs his head against the glass on the phone booth. A stupid reaction for sure, but it's just the glass that's broken here, not the character or the story. He goes on to make this point about how people who defend this movie are quite unreasonable.
It's such a shame no one can give their honest opinion of this movie without having a bunch of children on the internet gang up on you. And people harass me about these DC movies. I'm harassed about my opinions on them.
I really wish Ralph could just provide some evidence or a reference here to what he's talking about, because if someone is just disagreeing and countering his points as I'm doing with this video, then I don't really see a problem at all. As I said in the intro, you're allowed to have opinions on opinions. But if he's talking about outrageous comments that send death threats or whatever, then yeah, I guess I agree with him, but is it really worth highlighting here? I encourage you to make fun of those sort of comments, but I don't think it's worth giving those people any sort of power. Moving on, this video has a very bizarre structure because he just goes straight to talking about the end scene.
Well, were they gonna talk it out? Oh yeah, Joker, let's talk it out. That's what you wanted to happen, right? No, it's an obvious, cheap ending. He fucking shoots fuck.
That was his criticism of the ending. He just explained the scene and said it was cheap. Ralph's next section is basically delving into why he believes that Joker isn't a very subtle film with its themes, and ends up comparing it to the King of Comedy. Now, I broke down in the intro that if you're going to directly compare characters or something, as Ralph is doing here, then that's fine. I'm inclined to disagree with what he's going for, but there's nothing in particular wrong with this portion of the video. But I do have a problem with Ralph's attitude in this next section.
But then, because this movie is made for the 14-year-olds who thought Batman vs. Superman was a ground...
You see what he just did there? After the disclaimer about how people are mean to him online because of his opinions on DC movies, he tries to call anyone who likes Joker a 14-year-old that likes Batman vs. Superman as some kind of insult. Now, I'm obviously not offended by any means, mainly because I'm older than 14 and I don't really like Batman vs. Superman, but can you see the hypocrisy in what he's saying? Dude, if you don't like people insulting you for your harmless opinions on a little comic book movie, as you put it, then don't dish it out.
And the new thing to do now, when someone gives an opinion you don't like, is to say, oh, well, Ralph the Movie Maker, he has a bad take. His take, it's just a bad take.
Yeah, your video doesn't have 13,000 dislikes because you disliked Joker. It has 13,000 dislikes because of the incorrect information and weak criticism you're just throwing out there. And yeah, I get it, I'm probably one of the type of people you're referencing here, but you clearly understand that people can have bad takes, otherwise you wouldn't have made that video on your second channel where you tear into Nostalgia Critic's review of The Wall. He proceeds to quote the people saying that he has bad takes and just goes on a tangent about how our criticisms would probably boil down to, oh, Ralph thinks Joker is lame but he likes Mr. Robot. I have absolutely no idea who he's responding to here, so I think we might as well just move on. So we now jump back to the ending for the second time now, and yet again just goes on and on whilst not even directly responding to anyone.
Oh, Ralph, you just don't get it. The entire ending was a dream.
Please, pull up an article, a review, something from someone who's saying this. That part of the video was quite weird, but you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, I would physically assault some poor man because he talked to my son through an iron gate.
Here's the actual reason that happened. Arthur went to Thomas Wayne's house. Arthur puts his fingers in Bruce's mouth, which is weird. He then proceeds to strangle Alfred, the bodyguard, and would have killed him if Bruce wasn't witnessing it. Arthur then meets Thomas in the bathroom, so the implication is that he isn't going to leave Thomas alone until he gets the information he's after. So Thomas punching him in the face might not be the most rational decision, but certainly a natural one when you actually provide the full context for the scene. We now jump into talking about the end for the 7th time.
What a coincidence. I guess it's some of that dreamlike logic, right? They would just invite this random guy on there to talk on the couch and not check him for weapons.
I mean, as far as everyone's aware, like, Arthur having the clown makeup and stuff on isn't linked to the killings, due to that exchange they had earlier where they just questioned him on it. I guess this point can just be debated, but I wouldn't expect them to do like a random weapon search on him, especially considering that, you know, they were the ones that invited him on the show. Anyway, Ralph's next set of points are just diabolical.
That doesn't mean it doesn't have good elements, because it certainly does. Joaquin Phoenix's performance is terrific. It was a nice change of pace to see a superhero film that looked like a real movie. Wasn't infested with CGI. The lighting wasn't all flat and boring.
Subverted your expectations with that one, didn't I? But yeah, it's nice to see this review is only 99% biased and not the full 100. The next section is essentially just saying that Warner Brothers just copied and pasted a bunch of Marvel films, and now they're doing the same to 70s Scorsese films and capitalizing on the fact that R-rated superhero movies are doing well. I dislike the attitude that Warner Brothers can't produce any good films simply because, like, most of the concepts have already been done before. Ralph talks a bit about how he liked Joker when it came out because it was just a nice theatre experience, which is all well and good, you feel how you feel towards a film. But he then tries to push that onto everyone else.
The same thing with any other film that you can list that people say are boring. Meanwhile, they think Joker's a great movie because they sit down in the theater and they watch it once and they go, wow, that was a good movie, and they don't think about it at all.
Well, I saw it 3 times in theatres, I've made 2 videos on it, and I've been involved in dozens of discussions surrounding Joker, and I'll still continue to love it because I think it's a great film. And also, what happened to everyone just having their own opinions and no one can have a bad take? Whoops. He played some of the initial reactions he had towards the film over on his podcast, and then I guess he goes on to imply that the score is bad or doesn't fit the movie.
Love the score for this film too. The violins telling you how sad you're supposed to feel.
Ah yes, the music reflecting how you should feel towards the scene. That's so weird. He says that Warner Brothers didn't do a good job with this film and it's disguised as a thoughtful film just to beat their rival Disney, which he has not proved at all with this video. And goes on to roast some of the people in the replies to his tweet, clearly not realising that most of them at the time were just bait, considering that no one imagined his review would be like this bad. After all that, he touches upon how disconnected the script feels from the final product, and talks a bit about some of the DC connections.
The whole Batman connection in this film was totally pointless. If we're going to go with the whole theory that everything after the fridge is a dream, then why the hell would Joker imagine that Bruce Wayne's parents would be killed?
I'm sorry, but again, this isn't worth responding to because I have no idea who he's responding to. Maybe I'm in the minority here and I just haven't realised it, but I didn't get the impression this was a dream sequence, so I don't know. For the next few minutes of the video, I just sort of nodded along. He doesn't particularly make any terrible points that are worth breaking down, but he also doesn't say anything extremely substantive. He'll mention that the camera work is decent, but better in other films. Sure. He mentioned that if Jared Leto played Joker in Joker 2019, then people wouldn't like the film as much. I think that's just kind of a given. But then goes on to do what he does best in this video.
So let's say the whole ending is a dream. All of these characters are just manifestations inside Arthur's head. At the conclusion, in his deluded mind, he thinks he's a savior, he's being hailed on the street, and then they cut to him in the asylum. This could easily just be because he killed his mother and not because of anything else that happened. Wow, how brilliant. I can't believe I didn't get the movie.
We all have our own interpretations of the film, and that's fine. It can all be talked about. But the problem is that he's just critiquing it on the basis that it is. But we haven't even really established if he believes it is or isn't. It would be just 10 times better if we can actually just critique what's there rather than what this mysterious person he's responding to thinks is there. Ralph does a great impression of me to end off his video.
I just saw the new Ralph the Movie Maker on the Joker, and I have to say, I'm very insulted by his opinion. No, I'm not trying to be mean. I mean, I like Ralph. He makes a lot of good videos. But we really have to look at his analysis and thoroughly break down why he's just a terrible critic.
I'm sorry, but the internet doesn't quite work like that. It doesn't matter how self-aware you become about something, you're still open to criticism. That's all, folks.